go. We're only a couple of weeks away from kickoff. You can feel it in the air. You can feel it in your blood. If you're not getting chill bumps thinking about that first weekend, what are you even doing? We're going to talk some football today. We're going to talk quarterbacks in the state of Alabama here on Scarbo Knows. I'm Kevin Scarbinsky. You can call me Scarbo if you're feeling nice and generous. If not, hey, call me. Just call me. All right? So many people have, and they've called me many different things through the years. You can follow me on X/Twitter at Kevin Scarbinsky. Keep up with my columns in the Birmingham News. You can find those on AL.com. And, of course, this fresh and new podcast, Scarbo Knows. And we want to give a shout-out to our very first sponsor, Money Management Services, here in Birmingham. They are Birmingham's financial advisors since 1992. They're a family-owned company. They're a fee-only business, financial services, whatever you need, retirement planning, et cetera, et cetera. You want to visit with the Rice family, Father Don, the patriarch, and so many members of his family involved in the business, and we appreciate their support. So we are going to talk football today. We're going to talk quarterbacks, as I said. QB1. When did QB1 become the cool phrase for starting quarterback? I like it because it works better on graphics. It's quicker, it's shorter, it's punchier. And to talk about this and who might be the best QB1 in the state of Alabama, we've got the foremost expert on UAB football. He also knows the SEC. He's covered both for a lot of years. Friend of mine, former colleague of mine, now writing at the Birmingham Banner, Steve Irvine is with us today. Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Kevin. How you doing today?
I'm good. Excited to talk a little football. And like I said, I don't know that anyone that knows certainly UAB football better than you do, who has watched more UAB football than you have through the years, right up to the present day. And I have to admit, Steve, when I mentioned to you, and I asked you to be on the show the other day, and I first suggested the premise that maybe, possibly, the best starting quarterback in the state of Alabama this year doesn't play for Alabama, doesn't play for Auburn, but he just might play for UAB. I detected a little disbelief in your voice on the phone. Like, come on, Scarbo, are you crazy? What are you thinking about? Did I throw you a curveball when I hit you with that possibility, that suggestion?
Well, I didn't expect it. That's for sure. Yeah, it was a little bit unexpected. It made me think, because I really hadn't thought of that going in, to be honest with you, until you called. And then when I started thinking about it and we started talking about it a little bit at that point, I thought, wait a minute, this it could be, I mean, there's certainly an argument there. And to be honest with you, I remember back when I was covering Alabama in, the early 2000s, and there were some UAB folks that were saying Daryl Hackney was the best in the state at the time, and Alabama had Brody Croyle, and I don't remember who Auburn had at the time, but and I remember thinking, at the time I knew nothing about UAB. I really didn't, and I remember thinking at the time, I was like, you're crazy. You're crazy to think that. And then I got to cover Daryl Hackney in his last year in 2005, in his last year in college, and seeing him every day and seeing what he was capable of, I'm thinking, well, maybe he was, certainly maybe he was. So that kind of, when you brought it up, it kind of took me back to those days a little bit.
Yeah, dude had a cannon.
Oh, my.
Daryl Hackney did.
I remember the first day that I ever saw Daryl Hackney in person was, I had seen him play once, I think, but I'd seen him in person. I go out there and they're doing the summer work. That was back when you couldn't have coaches, and it was a bunch of players out there, and they were arguing over something. They're all screaming and yelling, oh no, yeah. And so I just kind of went over there and I just asked a guy, like, what are y'all arguing about, man? He said, we told, there's some new guys there. We told him that Hackney can throw the ball 80 yards from his knee. He can be on one knee and throw the ball 80 yards. And so they were betting on it. They were coming up with bets and different things. And, I'm thinking, like, come on, I'm thinking I want to get in on this, but I didn't, but I was thinking of getting it. And sure enough, he threw it 80, 81 or 82 from a knee.
From one knee.
And now this is the middle of the summer, and he's fresh, and and I didn't see it actually land. They claimed it was 81 or 82, but I'm telling you, if it wasn't 81 or 82, it was 75. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that guy could really throw the football.
He could. Now, of course, we know, and we've both been in this business in this state for a long time, that when people talk football here, they first talk Alabama and Auburn. That tends to blot out the sun. The Iron Bowl is, well, not only the greatest game in the state, I think it's the greatest game in the country. I think it's the greatest rivalry in the country, regardless of sport. And so we focus and tend to focus on the two SEC schools in the state. So let's look at the way it has shifted, the way Alabama, which didn't have for a long time, and you mentioned the early 2000s, we had the Tyler Watts, Andrew Zhao controversy when Dennis Franchione was there. You remember it well. Quick story on that. They were, of course, Tyler was more of a running quarterback. Andrew was more of a drop back thrower. And I'll never forget, they lost at South Carolina in, I want to say 2001 maybe. It was 2001. Mm-hmm. And Alabama got the ball back late, had a chance to drive down for the winning score. And Tyler Watts had played the bulk of that game, if not all of that game. And Franchione stayed with him. And I asked if he had at least considered in his own mind in the post-game press conference, I said, did you think about maybe putting Andrew Zhao in because he has a stronger arm? He's a better downfield thrower. And he gave some vanilla answer in the press conference. But as we were walking out of the room, he pulled me aside and said, hey, don't start a quarterback controversy. That's how paranoid Dennis Franchione was during his time as the Alabama head football coach. And, of course, that controversy was already out of the bag. People were already discussing it. You had people who loved Andrew and thought he should have been the full-time guy, people who loved Tyler, and they both did a lot of good things for Alabama. But that was an interesting snapshot from the past. But let's look at right now. Let's look at Brendan, if you'll pop up that's our topic for today. Who's the best QB1 in Alabama? You see Ty Simpson for Alabama. You see Jackson Arnold, who will be the Auburn starter. And then you see Jalen Kitna on the right, and he is certainly the starter at UAB. But let's look at the progression that Alabama, its series of quarterbacks over the last 10 years or so, has just completely outpaced Auburn's succession of quarterbacks. The last time that an Auburn quarterback threw for more yards in a season than Alabama's starter, 2017. Wow. Jarrett Stidham threw for over 3,000. Jalen Hurts just over 2,000. And then in the Iron Bowl that year, which is one of only two Auburn wins in the Iron Bowl since 2017, Stidham had a monster game, and Jalen Hurts didn't play all that well. So this has really shifted, Steve, where Alabama's quarterbacks, and it really kind of started when Saban brought in Lane Kiffin as his offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and they started trying to score more points, threw the ball around a little more. 2015, a little bit of an exception when they had Derrick Henry to lean on in the backfield. But their quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, and he got better, obviously, and then Tua Tagovailoa. We know what Mac Jones did. Bryce Young wins a Heisman. Their quarterbacks, that list of group of quarterbacks has been so much better than Auburn at that position. What do you attribute that to? What's your thought on that?
Well, I think part of it is the guys calling the offense, like you say, Lane Kiffin and Sarkisian and those guys calling the offense. Because would Bo Nix fit in? Does Bo Nix fit in that group? Absolutely, he does. What would Bo Nix have done with the right guy calling plays for his skill? I mean, well, you don't have to ask what he would have done. You saw what he did at Oregon. That's what he would have done. Yes. And so that's part of it. And the other part is, you just listed guys. That's some pretty talented guys there now. I mean, it starts with that. It starts with having talented guys. When was Jake Coker there?
He was there 2014 and 2015.
Okay.
In 2014, that was Kiffin's first year. Everybody thought Coker would come in from Florida State, win the job. but he didn't beat out Blake Sims.
Right, yeah.
And Blake Sims, a former running back turned quarterback, set some Alabama passing records.
Yeah, and think about that. Think about Blake Sims and Coker both. I mean, not that they're both. I mean, they had talent, but they're not like the rest of the guys that you mentioned. They had the right guy calling the offense, and and you look at that. So Blake Sims had a great year, and he had some talent, but he doesn't fit in that group. Just pure Blake Sims. He doesn't fit in that group unless you have a guy like Lane Kiffin pulling the strings there, so that's a big part of it to me. I think.
And he had a guy named Amari Cooper on the outside,
right,
who finished, I think, in the top 3 in the Heisman, if I recall, that year.
Yeah.
He had a zillion catches for a trillion, for 2 zillion yards that year. He had a monster game in that Iron Bowl. That was the 55-44 Iron Bowl that told you that Nick Saban was not the same Nick Saban, that he was thrilled to win a 55-44 game. He was getting away from his defense and joyless murder ball with the running game. He was starting to transition. There's another stat here. Let's look at, again, Brendan, our next graphic on passing yards in the Iron Bowl. And we go back to 2018. And I think it was Mike Loxley's actually was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. But look at the total. And the only time since 2018 that the Auburn quarterback has thrown for more yards in the Iron Bowl than the Alabama quarterback was last year, amazingly. Peyton Thorne threw for more than Jalen Milroe. Didn't really matter in the end. Alabama won 28-14. But look at the totals of those games collectively. Alabama's starting quarterback thrown for more than 2,000 yards. Auburn's starting quarterback barely over 1,000. 1,000-yard difference in those 7 games. No surprise that Alabama won 6 of them.
That's crazy. I mean, that's crazy to see the numbers. See it like that. I mean, that's some amazing stuff there. It really is. And especially also when some of those teams have some pretty good running backs too. I mean, so you have that to factor in there too, and you're throwing the ball like that. So that says a lot right there.
It really does. But we also want to talk. Okay, fast forward. We want to talk about today. We want to talk about this year. We want to talk about who's going to be the best quarterback in the state. And default mode for most people, and of course, Alabama fans are going to lean towards Ty Simpson, and he is going to be a first-year starter, even though he's in his 4th year in the program. And Alabama's had success with that type of guy, winning national championships. 4 of their 6 titles under Nick Saban came with a first-year starter, but they wasn't their first year on campus for any of those guys. They'd been in the system. They'd been in the program. And then Auburn fans, of course, they're going to back Jackson Arnold. They're excited about what he can be, especially with the wide receiver room that they've got. Jackson Arnold, again, highly touted coming out of high school, didn't live up to that in his 2 years at Oklahoma. And then there's a guy right here in Birmingham, Jalen Kitna. And UAB doesn't get the spotlight, doesn't get the attention, doesn't get the notice of the other D1 programs in the state, especially the 2 SEC programs. But Jalen Kitna has done some pretty impressive things in his 1 year as a starter with the Blazers. Let's look at a statistical comparison of their college careers. And of course, Jalen Kitna had a cup of coffee at Florida before he transferred to UAB. Jackson Arnold, 2 years at Oklahoma. Ty Simpson, his entire college career at Alabama. And he has really not gotten much play or much run. So you see the difference in the numbers. But look at those numbers for Jalen Kitna. He had more completions, more attempts, about the same percentage as Jackson Arnold, more yards, more touchdowns, also a lot more interceptions, and has a superior quarterback rating. So, Steve, when you look at those, what does that tell you, that snapshot of the college careers to date of those 3 quarterbacks?
I mean, it tells you that my first thing, it tells you that Jalen Kitna belongs in this group, belongs in this conversation. Now I will say this, is Jalen Kitna from last year, which I don't expect it to be the same Jalen Kitna as last year. If he throws 11 interceptions again and fumbles the ball 7 times, or whatever it was, then I don't think he's your answer here. I really don't. But with Jalen Kitna, who now has 8 games of starting experience, who's grown a lot, who's had the chance to be a year-round sort of starting quarterback, and to see if he's grown like I think he's grown and like it looks like he's grown, then yeah, but again, you can't with Jalen Kitna, he's got to cut out the mistakes, and honestly, that 11 interceptions, not all of them were his fault, obviously, because they never are. I mean, it's a team thing, but I would say if you go back and really watch his 8 games, there was probably 1 or 2 or 3 throws a game where he was throwing the ball away, not throwing it away, but just trying to make a play that they dropped an interception. That number could have been more than 11. It really could have. But if he takes that out of his and start and makes the better decisions that he looks like he's making now, then he certainly belongs.
And it is interesting when you flash back to last year. Of course, he wasn't the starter when the season began. Jacob Zeno was. He got hurt. And Jalen Kitna, unfortunately for him, had to make his debut against Tulane, a really good Tulane team under John Summerall. And what did he throw? 3 picks in that game. I was there. Actually, we watched that game in the press box at Protective Stadium. And it was a very, very rough beginning for him. But he did bounce back. I flash back. I didn't put this on a graphic, but last year against South Florida, he throws still blows my mind. He threw 56 passes. He was 33 for 56 for 384 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then he comes back and they lost the game, but they were in the game. UAB was competitive against South Florida.
Should have won it.
And really, again, there were some mistakes, and I think he dropped. Then he put the ball on the ground. Kitna,
he did.
Critical.
Yeah, he did.
And then Tulsa, UAB wins big, 59-21. He's 25 for 32, 404 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Right.
So what is his ceiling?
Well, his ceiling is really high. I mean, you talk to Trent Dilfer, his ceiling is a first-round draft pick. I mean, he really believes that he has the tools to be a first-round draft pick. Now, will that happen? He's got to make that happen. I mean, that's just not going to happen. They're just going to give it to him. But that's his ceiling. That he has the ability to be a first-round draft pick. I don't know. We haven't seen it as much. I mean, you do see it at practice. And I'll say this about Jalen Kitna. If you go back and you watch film from last year, even the Tulane game, I'm talking even the Tulane game, there was probably 3-4 balls a game where he makes a throw and you just go, wow. There's not a lot of people make that throw right there. Now, he would often follow it up with an interception or a fumble in the next play or a mistake because he was just learning, he was learning how to be a starting college football quarterback. But he has some special ability throwing the football. I mean, he really does. And he just needs to be, and I think he will be, he just needs to be more consistent doing it. And I'll say that we talked about this the other day when we were talking. One reason I have a lot of confidence that I think he's going to grow a lot as a quarterback this year is the way that they're doing their fall camp is when they practice, they go hard, when they go hard at each other and they play 11-on-11 football. The secondary is probably maybe the strength of their team. Their secondary is really, really good, and they're pushing him and they're playing. They're rushing him and they're not hitting him. That's the one thing that they don't do. But one thing that Trent Dilfer has said is he wants him to be uncomfortable back there. And so he wants them to go full out toward him and get as close as they can without hitting him, because he wants to feel squeezed. He wants him to feel squeezed. And then he's squeezed in the secondary, or, throwing the ball downfield because the secondary is so good. So I think he's growing a lot just in this camp. And I don't know that happens a whole lot because, I think there's a lot of times, especially when a team is you sort of have it figured out of who's going to be where. You don't know the exact depth chart, but you sort of know, okay, well, this guy, these 6 are going to start. Now we got any guys to push them type thing. But in this case, they go into this thing with, Jalen Kitna, John Darius Morgan on offense, and Sherrod Bryant on defense as 3 guys, the only 3 guys where you can go, okay, well, they probably are going to have a starting role, which Kitna, yes, for sure. But so you're trying to win jobs. So you can't just sort of ease your way and play a lot of 7-on-7 and, play a lot of thud or even fake thud, where you don't really hit. They're going at it. And so I think he's growing a lot, because he's throwing interceptions in this thing. And of course you throw a lot of passes. But one thing that I've noticed when I'm watching, and obviously I don't see it as a coach, but one thing that, in my opinion, what I notice is the interceptions he is throwing are on plays that are made by the defense. Where sometimes last year I thought some of the interceptions were plays where he threw it right at him or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think the times that he makes a mistake in this camp has been because they just made a play, and that's going to happen. That's going to happen to everybody. Sometimes the other guy just makes a play, and so I think that's really going to help him grow a lot this year. I think he's going to be a lot more. Obviously, he's going to be a lot more ready to play than last year because he had never started, never played, and other than the mop up stuff at Florida, and so. I think he's a lot more prepared this year to handle those situations. Now, we'll see if it happens on Saturdays. I don't know, but we'll see.
It's been fascinating to read your work because you're out there watching every day. You're watching them practice. You're watching this change in attitude. And then to hear Trent Dilfer's quotes about they're playing more tackle football. And even when they're not playing tackle football, that they are going after the quarterback. He doesn't want them to just rush by and tap him on the butt and think you got a sack because you're not bringing him down because he is, 6'5", 225 pounds in that range.
Yeah,
he is a prototype NFL quarterback. And look, let's look first of all at what Trent Dilfer said at American Conference Media Day about Jalen Kitna. Jalen Kitna is better than me at every level of football at this stage of our career. There's not one thing that I was better at than Jalen Kitna is, and I was the 6th pick in the draft. No lie there. He was the 6th pick in the draft coming out of Fresno State, and you can poke fun and call him the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, but dude had a really good college career, and he did play in the NFL for a long time, so he does know quarterbacks. For him to say that, now let me qualify this, Steve. We know that Trent Dilfer has a history of getting a little excited and maybe going a little overboard when he talks about quarterbacks. And the infamous example to me is Shaun White at Auburn, who Trent had at the Elite 11 camp. And when Jeremy Johnson just, for whatever reason, didn't get it done as the starter in 2015 with the Tigers, and they turned to Shaun White. And someone on the staff, I don't know if it was you, someone on the staff at AL.com talked to Trent Dilfer because he had known Shaun and coached him at the Elite 11 and what Auburn was getting in the guy who was taking over the position. And he made Shaun White sound like the second coming of Joe Montana, which was overboard and unfair to Shaun White.
Right.
So putting that in perspective and adding that asterisk, what was your reaction when you heard Trent Dilfer say that about Jalen Kitna?
Well, my jaw dropped. I mean, for him to say it in the setting he said it, and I've heard him say similar things, but you have to remember too is, and Trent Dilfer has done a lot better job of that this year because he's conscious about it. He is not. He is trying to be less publicly optimistic. He's trying to be, because he knew in his first 2 years. maybe talked them up a little bit too much as a team, and so he has taken the approach of, we need to show you, not tell you, and he has done a better job of that, as you've seen. But in this case, that's kind of, so to me, that says a lot. That says that, not that he didn't truly mean what he said the other times, but I think in this case, it was just, he really truly believes this, and that's the one thing about Trent Dilfer I've noticed too, is when he says something like that, even about Sean White, I mean, he truly believes it. I mean, he's not one of those guys, in my opinion, after, knowing him for a couple of years now and talking to him a lot for a couple of years now, he doesn't say it just because he thinks it's a good soundbite. I mean, he has a lot of good sound bites, but
he does.
But he doesn't go in like, I'm going to try to get a soundbite here. He really truly believes that. And when he says this about Jalen Kitna, he really truly believes that. And I think part of it is too is he really truly has seen Jalen Kitna at every stage, because he's so close with the family. And now, again, he doesn't see him every day, type thing, when he was in high school or whatever, and he was coaching and whatnot. But he's seen the progression personally. It's not like he just, really started knowing him maybe as a junior or senior in high school, and you sort of see that, and then you see the progression from there. I mean, he's known Jalen Kitna since probably he was born, or close to it at least. And so he's
friends with his dad. He's friends with his dad, John, who was a former NFL quarterback himself.
Right. And they're good friends. And so, and I'm sure they've talked over the years, and I know they've talked over the years about it. So I think that's part of this too, but that's strong. I mean, but I was, at the setting that he said it, my jaw dropped a little bit, but I don't know that, he's necessarily wrong. I mean, he's going to have to prove him right.
Right.
I mean, he's going to have to prove him right this year, but he could be absolutely right. We'll see.
And now we know, and most football fans know, and you mentioned it earlier, it's not all on the quarterback.
Right.
He's got to have a line that protects him. He's got to have backs that pick up blitzes. He's got to have receivers that sometimes can just go up and make a play, even on a poorly thrown ball. We know how good the wide receiver rooms are at Alabama and Auburn. Alabama's got Ryan Williams, who was just a lightning bolt last year, especially early. He kind of hit a wall second half of the season. He was only 17. I didn't know if you were aware of that.
No, never heard that. Yeah. Well, you broke that right
That's
here.
Right.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Bernard, the transfer from Washington, they brought in Isaiah Horton this year from Miami. Alabama's going to be fine at receiver. Ty Simpson's going to have a lot of help. Same thing with Jackson Arnold at Auburn. Cam Coleman, we saw what he could do last year as a freshman. The transfer from Georgia Tech, Eric Singleton, they are raving about him on the Plains and the plays that they expect him to make. What does the wide receiver room look like at UAB, and are they going to be able to be there to make plays for Jalen Kitna?
Well, I mean, I like what I see right now, but it's a lot of the unknown. They don't have anybody known like you just talked about, and Corey Milner last year had a great end of the year, last 6 games or so, might have been their best guy last 6 games of the season. Is he ready to take a step up? I haven't really seen that from him yet. Maybe he is, maybe not. I don't know. He needs to be. He could be the guy. I do think Caleb Brown from who was signed by Ohio State out of high school, so that tells you something. As a receiver, played a year there, went there for a year as a redshirt, and then transferred to Iowa for a couple of years, and now he's here at UAB. He has a chance to really be special. And he didn't get to play in the spring. He broke a bone in his foot. Or literally the first practice of spring, somebody stepped on it. So he didn't get a chance to play then, but he's really shown the ability in camp, and I think he's healthy. So, they've got some guys like, and they've got a lot of other guys. I mean, they're deep there, but they're not 100% proven here, at this level type thing. And, AJ Johnson was the leading receiver at East Tennessee, and I think he's really come on in camp. But that East Tennessee is not who they're going to be playing, and so that's just kind of an example. I think Iverson Hooks is healthy and kind of ready to be a guy, but again, you have a lot of a lot of guys, but you can't just look at them and say, okay, that's the guy, that's the guy, that's the guy. You know, they're going to have to prove it on the field. They got, you know, I think they have talent there, but you know, we'll see. You know, so but I also think it helps them that, you know, they've got 3 really good running backs that are versatile. Solomon Beebe is, you know, Lee Beebe was his brother, who's at Indiana now, was the leading rusher last year. Solomon Beebe is, I don't know what in the world, why Solomon Lee Beebe weren't recruited at all out of high school, at all. You know, Lee Beebe was part of a tryout camp that, well, first they saw him in camp, and he was playing with the wide receivers, and he ran, you know, did a couple things, and one of the coaches, I think it might have been Lyle Henley, one of the coaches went over to whoever's running and said, that kid needs to be with a running back group. I don't know what he's doing over there. Put him with the running back group. Loved what they saw, and then he went to a tryout. And so I don't know why they didn't get, and Solomon Beebe didn't get recruited. He just came there because of his brother. But he has a chance to be special, a special type of playmaker, you know, and by doing that, I think what's really good about him is you don't have to hand him the ball. You can put him in a lot of different situations and give him the ball quick and things, and he's going to turn in a big play. So I think that's going to be that. And then with Isaiah Jacobs and Javon Jackson too are both good at that, you know, different things. So I think that'll help him too. That'll help him just the whole offense playmaker wise. They have playmakers. They just have to prove it.
All right, Steve, it's not a secret that Trent Dilfer's on the hot seat in year 3.
Oh, yeah.
Hasn't gotten it done first 2 seasons. He's got a quarterback he's very excited about. We're talking about him and his potential, what he might be able to accomplish. I mean, even last year, even though he started only 8 games, he was second in the American Conference in yards per game. He threw for 276 yards a game. If he plays to his potential, if he becomes what Trent Dilfer thinks he can become, what does UAB do on the field? Do they have a winning season? Do they go to a bowl game? What's the ceiling for UAB if Jalen Kitna hits his ceiling?
Well, I think they certainly go to a bowl game if that happens, because for that to happen, for him to hit his ceiling, that means they're blocking well up front, which is a big question. The biggest question mark on the team right now is what they're going to look like up front. Now, I think they have pieces, just putting them together. Okay, but if he hits his ceiling, now we're talking about him hitting his ceiling. That means they block it well up front. That means the playmakers make plays. That means the questions about who's a playmaker and all that kind of stuff, those questions are answered. Okay, if for him to hit his ceiling, and that also means, well, that it doesn't mean the defense is playing well, you know, because I think the defense is much improved. But that certainly means that other stuff happens, because for him to hit his ceiling, and that's a bowl team. That's a bowl team, because I do think the defense is much improved. I think Steve Russ, the defensive coordinator, and the staff he put together is tremendous. I think they have a lot of playmakers there. You know, a lot of guys that are new guys, and you don't quite know. And I don't know that they're going to have many household names on defense, but I think they're going to be make plays, and they're going to be deep. So I think that, you know, as long as they play their role, which I think they will, and as long as everybody else plays a role around Kitna to help him get to his ceiling, or his, you know, upper shelf, then that's a bowl team. Now, I don't know how many wins that means. That might be 6. It might be 7. You know, who knows? I mean, it depends on, you know, health. It depends on health of who they're playing. It depends on ball bouncing right. It depends on not having a stupid personal foul after the whistle blows when on 4th down, on 3rd down, when you forced a punt, you know, and then giving up a touchdown after that. Things like that they've done a lot over the past 2 years. Just mental mistakes. You know, they got to cut those out. So it depends on a lot of things. But, you know, if he reaches upper shelf, that means you know, they're doing all those other things.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch. We're only a couple of weeks away from opening weekend, full opening weekend. We can't wait to actually get some answers to our questions. We've got a lot of them right now. Steve Irvine, thanks so much for breaking down this question and not thinking me crazy that if things go well, Jalen Kitna just might be the best QB1 in the state of Alabama this year. Steve, where can people keep up with your work? Because no one covers UAB better.
Well, we're at bhambanner.com, and that's where, and then I'm active on Twitter at Steve Irvine 04. Put a lot of stuff on there too, and I'm an old guy, so I'm not great at social media, but I try. My kids help me out, and but yeah, those are two places that probably easiest to find our stuff. And we're trying. We this is our second year doing the banner. Sam Miller is in charge of it, and so we're hopefully we're getting better, and we're enjoying our. I know I'm enjoying it.
Well, we love keeping up with your stuff and appreciate your friendship through the years as well. Steve Irvine, one of the best. Thanks so much, Steve, for being with us. That's going to do it for Scarbo Knows today. I'm Kevin Scarbinsky. We'll again want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Money Management Services, a family-owned, fee-only financial services firm right here in Birmingham, Alabama. Reach out to the Rice family. You'll be glad you did. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'm Kevin Scarbinsky. See ya.